The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning once again, and welcome to the Boundary Systems Wednesday webinar on change management in Windchill. My name is Michael Wimberly, and I will be doing the presentation on change management. So the overall objective, of course, of this webinar is to simply review and demonstrate change management within within Windchill. We've done several demonstrations on change management. I will show a few little additional aspects of change management that I haven't shown before. So there'll be a few things that I add inside of here, but the overall structure, if you've seen the previous ones, will kind of go similarly. So once again, the overall agenda is an introduction of myself and Boundary Systems, general topic overview, and of course the actual product demonstration. And then after that, there'll be a Q&A on any questions that you have associated with change management. So my name once again is Michael Wimberly. I am a senior technical specialist here at Boundary Systems. I have over 20 years, actually now over 25 years, experience with PTC products, everything from Creo into Windchill, and I am a certified trainer in Creo as well as Windchill classes, as well as a certified implementation specialist for Windchill. Boundary Systems itself has over 20 years of experience in the PTC channel. Once again, you have technical specialists anywhere from 10 to over 25 years of experience. Some a little bit less, but that's about the average range of our specialists. Some of our major accreditations that we have, of course, are PTC software reseller, preferred service provider, certified training partner, authorized training centers, also maintenance partners, as well as Windchill implementation specialists. And we currently are supporting over 100 companies in their Windchill environment. So we once again pride ourselves on the support that we give to our customers with Windchill. Of course, we do for Creo as well, but once again, Windchill being the PLM system that a lot of people are using. Now, with Boundary Systems is headquartered in Cleveland, Ohio. I personally am actually out of Cincinnati, Ohio, and we have other technical specialists and sales that are in different parts of Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan, different places across the country, and we also have representation in Canada as well. What you're seeing on the right side of the overhead are just some of the customers that we support. Once again, this isn't all encompassing of everyone that we support. We just put a couple of names up there. We kind of change this periodically for the overheads or with the overheads just to show some of the different customer names. All right. Now, our mission as Boundary Systems is first off to have the most technical expertise on PTC products of any company in the world. So we pride ourselves on our technical specialists. We have SMEs in multiple areas with PTC products. We consider ourselves jack of all trades. Some of us touch multiple areas of it, but we do have subject matter experts in different fields. So we do want to have our expertise in those areas. We also strive to understand our customer needs. So before we give you a solution, we like to sit down with you, discuss what it is that you're trying to do, what you're currently doing, and figure out what solution we can go through and come up with to get you to the next level. With that, we do guarantee success of every solution that we provide. So when we do give you or we recommend to you, we do guarantee the success of that, because once again, we're going to work with you to make sure it's implemented properly, that it's understood appropriately so that your user base everywhere from engineering, if you're working with Windchill overall, all the way to marketing, purchasing, whoever may be touching Windchill, that they truly understand how to get into the system and access the data appropriately, because the overall purpose of this is, the last bullet item is to decrease cost, decrease time to market, and increase your quality. So with these solutions that we give you, we want to make sure that you are basically enhancing your current system, that you are benefiting from what you're actually getting from PTC solutions, as well as working with us to help you implement those. All right, and then what you're seeing here are just some of the solutions that we as Boundary Systems do offer. So of course the PTC suite, so we do offer any of the PTC software. We also have solid thinking, Modex, some of the analysis functionalities, FEA type functions, Xformations, eTriage, to go through and connect or export information out of Windchill, ITI, which helps to go in and create an integration between two pieces of software that wouldn't normally talk to each other. ZWCAD for 2D functionality, Keyshot, Noesis, and then of course Mentor Graphics as well. Now, if you have any information or you want some information from us, you can contact me directly. For any technical questions, you can contact me. There's my phone number, 513-415-0747, or you can, of course, email me at mwimberly@boundarysys.com. Or if you have any sales-related questions, you can contact our sales department at 440-274-0291, or send an email to them directly as well at sales@boundarysys.com. All right, so once again, the overall topics that we're going to cover in this webinar are simply change management within Windchill. So we'll jump right into the demonstration. For Windchill. All right, so what I currently have open is my Creo session, and I'm logged in as an individual user, and I'm looking at their home page inside of Windchill. So it's come to our attention that there's been some failure in some of the parts that we've been working with, specifically dealing with some of our connecting rods. So what we're going to do, we're going to go in and pull up our overall piston assembly that has a connecting rod in it. So I'm going to go ahead and search for this in my system, and there's the piston assembly. So what we have is we have our CAD file, we have our WT part file, and we also have our drawing associated with those. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and select all of those, and I'm going to add them to basically a problem report. So I'm going to go in and submit a problem report that will allow us to go through and analyze what's going on with that. So I'm going to select that. I'm going to come over here and tell it I want to go in and create a new problem report. And it goes in and begins a problem report. And I'm going to go in and name this connecting a rod failure. And then who's requesting it? I got this information from field service. So I'm going to put them in here. So this doesn't have to actually be someone that is directly connected to Windchill, so I can go in and put in whoever I got the information from. It does not have to link to anyone within the system. The category is, once again, a design issue. And the priority of that, we're going to go ahead and give that a medium priority. And then, of course, I can give it a need by date if I want to. Go ahead and select next. Now, with this is now going in and adding an end item that will be a deliverable that this assembly may be associated with. At this point, we're just analyzing the assembly, so we're not actually going to go through and add an end item. Here are the current items that we're collecting. So you can see, once again, the WT part file, the assembly file, and the drawing file. I'm going to go ahead and select on the piston assembly, and I'm going to go ahead and collect additional items associated with that. When I go in and do that, it will give me the remainder of the items in that assembly. I can go ahead and select each one of those, grab each one of their WT parts, as well as collect any drawings that may be associated with those as well. So I'm going to collect all those items. And now all those items will now appear inside of my problem report. Now, if I've added a few too many because I don't need the piston part itself, so I can go through and select on the piston part. And I could have done this in the previous window as well, but I'm just showing you the additional functionality in your collecting of the items. So there's the piston. I don't need any of those, anything associated with the piston. I'll leave the piston pin for now. Inside of here. So I'll go ahead and remove those from this listing. So now I just have the assembly, the connecting rod, and then of course the actual piston pin itself. Then I'll go ahead and select next. Now at this point I can go through and now add any additional information that may be associated with this. So if there's a picture, there's some type of image or some type of documentation that we want to go through and add, we can go through and do that as well. So I can go through and add a file inside of here. And if I go to my desktop, I just picked up an image. There's actually a bent connecting rod image that I went in and found just to show that you can go through and add additional information. And then once again, if there was an existing report out there, problem report, change request, whatever it may be on this same assembly, I can now associate that to this. I don't have any of that, so I'll go ahead and finish this. So once I've gone in and created this, if I needed to go through and do a little more research, I can go through and say submit this later, come back to it, add additional information, and then submit it. Or I can go ahead, like I'm going to do, and tell it to go in and submit it now. Now, when I submit this, this now goes to our change administrators. So when we're dealing in our change process, there are actually 3 levels of change administrators. We have a change level 1, change level 2, and change level 3. I'm actually in here as myself, which will actually go in and get this notification. And what you'll see is that I'm actually in here and I'm the person for change administrator 1. Change administrators are actually set up inside of the team. So I can go through and set up who's going to be change administrator 1, 2, or 3. So I can go through and set that up. So once again, for what I have, I'm currently change administrator 1. So whoever's set at that role will now get this problem report. I can now go through and analyze the problem report. This shows me that there is an image file. I can go through and open it up and it shows me the picture of the file that was actually uploaded. That doesn't look too good. So with that, I do agree that this is something that needs to happen. So this is confirmed. And I'll go ahead and complete this task. If there was something else that I needed, maybe not verified, maybe there's something else that I needed more information on, or this is a duplicate. We already know that this is an issue. It was submitted by a different field service person, or maybe somebody in the shop floor. So we can basically say this is a duplicate item, or I need some clarification. Whatever it is, I can go through and set up any of those. This works out great. So I'll go ahead and say complete this task. All right, so now that task is completed. Now when I go back to my demo page, I'm sorry, yeah, my worker page, it's not actually showing my task. Of course not. It's a demo. It's not going to show the task. It should have actually shown my task. I apologize for that. It should have shown me a task to go through and create my change request. And I'm not sure why it's not showing that. I apologize for that. But I will come into my problem report, and from here I will go through and now create a change request off of that. Now the benefit of doing it off of my existing problem report is that I'm going to simply propagate the information from my change request, from my problem report into my change request. So the title will stay the same, still a design issue, the priority is the same. The description is bending of center section of connecting rod. Proposed solution, thicken section. And then if I know if there's a reoccurring cost, I can put that there, basically, or if it's a non-reoccurring cost. So if it's more material or non-reoccurring cost, maybe an update to the mold. So that's one-time shot that this mold needs to be updated to go through and make it the thickness that we want it to be. So that will be basically a non-reoccurring cost, a one-time shot. A reoccurring cost would be, okay, now it takes more material. So instead of it taking, let's just say $5 to create it, now it costs $6. And I'm just making up numbers. But once again, a reoccurring cost will be an additional dollar that it will go through and cost us to do that. Next. Now, once again, end item will be the top level item that this thing is associated with. And once again, this is dealing with the WT part file. Or an end item WT part file. Now with this, I do have an end item that this is associated with, which once again is the deliverable for this. So I'm going to go ahead and add it. And then for this, I'm going to go through and find, it is called engine_demo. And it goes in and finds my engine demo assembly. So this, once again, when you look at your WT parts and you have that little blue star on that, that means that you've designated this as an end item, or once again, the deliverable of the actual assembly, or deliverable of an assembly or a part, whatever it may be, but you've designated it as an end item. And that's what we're looking at there. So there's the end item that we've gone through and associated with. We go into next. And then once again, it goes in and shows all the appropriate parts, the connecting rod, the assembly, so on and so forth. I've gone in and I have each one of those inside of here. So those are perfectly fine. Any additional attachments that I want to go through and add, I can do that as well. And then of course, it goes in and shows the information that is actually created. And this is the actual problem report that it's showing here. So the problem report, once again, does travel with the actual change request because, once again, it's part of the related issue. So at this point, I'll go ahead and finish this. This is just the creation of the change request. So I'm going to, once again, go ahead and submit this. And then once I go back to my home page again, now I have my task, once again, as change administrator, to go in and analyze the change request. So I could have created it and started it, or once again, if the engineer had the appropriate permissions and everything, they could have started it and basically submitted it. And it still would have came to me as a change administrator because I have the task of analyzing the change request. So I'll go through and I'll submit it. Or I'll select it, sorry. And then once again, it goes in and shows the attachments that are associated with it, the actual change request itself. So if I want to go through and analyze and see what's inside of there and how this was all set up, I can go through and do that. You can see the notes and everything inside of there, the images, all the associated objects, the related end item, all that's there. We can also see where the process is. It's still running, so on and so forth. So all that with the actual change request. So now, once we've gone through and set all that up, we can now go through and define which route we want to take this. So now, mind you, we started in the problem report. So with the problem report, we've gone through and defined that, yes, this is a recurring issue. So we are going to move forward on it. If we didn't start with a problem report, we could have started directly with a change request. Now that's why with the change request, we also have the ability to go through it for clarification. We can reassign it, we can reject it, we can review it, or basically have additional review on it as necessary, or we can specify when it does move forward, is this going to be a fast track or a full track change? Basically, if it's a fast track, it's something that doesn't need additional approval or additional design review. So we can just simply move the process forward. Or we can go in and do a full track. And with the full track, we would actually go through a change review board, and who's ever on that change review board would actually get notification to go in and review this. So we're actually going to do a full track. I've done fast tracks before. I'm going to do a full track on this one and go ahead and select once again that I've completed this task. Now when I go to my home page, I can see that it basically says schedule change review board review. So basically going to schedule a meeting for the change review board. Now, with that, I can also go through and now with this meeting, it doesn't have to occur, of course, within Windchill. So this is just simply saying schedule the meeting, have the meeting. Any information that we want to go through and add to this, we can. So here's the information. Once again, it's still on the full track, so it's telling me to set everything up. All that information inside of here. Now, this at the bottom is now after we've had our meeting, what has been the resolution? Has this change that we're trying to implement been approved? Has it been rejected? Or do we still need some additional clarification? So we can go through and specify that. So we can go through and say that this has been approved. And I can go through approved by change review board without issues. Great. Once again, complete that particular task. And now, because it has been approved, now it goes to the next level. Now, I'm in here as all the different change administrators, but now creating of the change notice now goes to the actual change administrator 2. So this individual will now go through and specify the change notice piece of it. So I'll go ahead and say create the change notice. Now, with this, once again, it's simply telling me to go in and create the change notice. So from the actual change request, I can go in and specify the change notice. And then once again, propagate the appropriate information across the board. Next part is defining the implementation plan. So with this implementation plan, it's now who's going to do the work. So it's been decided that work needs to be done, and it's decided what work needs to be done. Now we're going to go through and specify who's going to do the work. So inside of here, we're going to go through and edit this implementation plan. So inside of here, we have who's going to be assigned to it and who's going to review it. We're going to go through and change the assignee to the demo user. And then once again, for the reviewer, I'm going to leave that as myself. Next are the resulting items. So what we're looking at here, so now you see it broken down at the top. We have our WT part files. When you deal with your WT part files, you have the ability to go through and set a few additional things inside of here. One of them is being, so the things that are in stock. You know, what do we do with those? So things that are in order, things that are in process, and things that are on the shelf. What do we do with those? So when we're looking at the connecting rod for any of the things that's in order, we want to go through and basically scrap them. For anything that is work in progress, we're going to go through and rework them. And anything that is finished, we can go through and scrap that as well. Actually, for anything that's reordered, it's on order, we can go through and rework that. And then for the actual piston assembly, we're basically going to go in and say use. For on order, they can use as is. Anything in process, they can use as is. And then anything that is finished, we can basically retrofit. And then for the pin itself, nothing needs to change with the pin at this point, so we're okay with that. Now, these are all the items. So what we're going to do, and actually for this item, I don't need the format, so I'm going to go in and remove the format. I just need the actual files. So for those items here, instead of going in and changing these items, I'm going to go through and actually add additional items. So down here at the bottom is our resulting items. So the things that we're going to go through and actually work on. So with that, because this is a design change, we're going to go through and actually revise each one of these. So what that's going to do is going to take each one of these from 1.1 to basically 2.1. So I'm going to select on those, and then here in my toolbar is the revise tool. Each one of those will now get revised. Once again, I do not need the format, but each of my files will go from revision 1 to revision 2. And there once again stay within the directory that we've specified. Great. Now, when we look at the bottom, we can then see that all these files are currently at revision 2. Now, once again, these are the files that we're going to go in and work on. Now, there's something else that we can do with these, and I'll actually do that. Yeah, I'll do that later. So at this point, I'm done with my change task. So I'll go ahead and select on finish. So that task has now been assigned. At this point, I'll go ahead and select next. Once again, if I want to add any additional attachments, I can do that as well. Or once again, any additional associated change processes or problem reports, whatever it may be, I can go through and associate them as well. I'm done at this point. So I'll go ahead and select finish, submit now. Now, once again, this item has been submitted. Now I'll go back into the demo worker. Why is it not showing up? Why is it falling behind? Oh, sorry. There is one other thing. I apologize for that. Once you create the change notice, because I am doing a full track, there's also a change implementation review that also needs to be done. Once again, that is another step in the full track. So the fast track does not have the change review board, nor does it have the change implementation board review. So neither one of those are in the actual fast track, but this is basically allowing us to go through and check and double check to make sure that the changes that we're doing, the changes that we're trying to implement are appropriate, that the appropriate items are have basically been set up properly, that the changes are what needs to be done, all that is here. So with that, we can go through and approve it, amend it, or once again, reject it. So with this, the review has been done. Everything's good. So we'll go ahead and approve this. Now, with that approval, now the actual worker gets their task. So now they have the task of going in and completing what's been set up. And once again, they can go through and review the task, see all the information associated with it, whatever notes have been associated with it, all those things are there. Once again, you can see the resulting objects, so you can see the items that that individual will be working on. Now, before we do that, we're dealing with the connecting rod. So with the connecting rod, I'm going to go back in here as the actual, as myself basically, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to go to the engine blower assembly. And then I'm going to go, oh, that's too far. Sorry. I need to go to the connecting rod inside of this directory. So we have the information here. Where is my connecting rod? Oh, there it is. All right, so I'm going to go into the actual connecting rod itself. So inside the connecting rod, I'm actually going to go through and start a discussion. Now, a lot of times what we do is when we go through and we make changes and oh yeah, I forgot to mention, I want you, this is something else that you need to do. So we send an email to go through and actually alert the individual user. Now that is basically something that is between myself and the individual user that I've sent it to. But if I go into this part itself, inside of Windchill, there is underneath the custom tab the ability to go through under collaboration, have discussions. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to go in and begin a new topic. Now with this name of this topic is going to be vendor approval. And then the participants of this of course, I'm the one that's creating it, so I'm automatically one. And then, of course, the demo user is going to be the other person. And then I'm going to make sure I subscribe to it so that when the demo user actually goes through and makes a response to it, I'll get notified through email and through a task that there's been a comment made. So now there's the information. Now my actual comment itself is vendor approval. And then my note is make sure that before the change is implemented, the vendor has approved it. There it is. Next, if I had any attachments, maybe there was an approval form that we send all our vendors that they need to go through and actually sign off on. We can add this inside of here so the demo user can actually download it and send it to the vendor, and then they can upload it back. Then next again, if there were some additional links, maybe a link to that document, I can do that as well. None of that I have currently, so I'll go ahead and finish this. All right, and I'm actually opening back up my email so that we will see my notification come through. So I've created it. And I'll open up. There's the email. It talks about a new discussion, the topic in the discussion. Once again, a new topic has been set up, vendor approval, so on and so forth. So it shows the information inside of there for that particular one that has actually been created. Now, the other thing that I didn't show you is every time I went in and submitted a different task or completed a task, there was an email that was sent. So every time, so not only did I get a task, but I also got an email. Actually, I closed out my email, so I wasn't getting pop-ups, but I forgot that was part of the demo. So once again, every time I completed a task or was assigned a task, I actually got an email notification of those. So those do come through your email for that. So each one of those is set up. So there's a new comment that's been set up. Once again, there it is. Make sure that before the change is implemented, the vendor approved it. Great. Now, for me, I'm complete. Now, for the demo user, right now, unfortunately, the demo user does not have an email set up inside of here appropriately, so they don't get that notification. They would normally, just like I got a notification, they would. But the other thing that needs to happen is that on your home page, you also want to go through and add discussions as a section as well. And now we can see that they've been a part of two discussions, design update and vendor approval, which is the current one. And then you can also see that this is a new notification. So this is something they haven't read yet. So I'm going to go ahead and select on that. It opens it up. And now, once again, there's a note that's associated with it. I'll come over and now add to that. And I'll say approved. Spoke to the vendor and they have approved the design change. Attached is the email and signed sheet. All right, so there's the actual note. When I go to next, then once again, I can go through and find the files that I want to go through and use. So I'm going to go through and select, and I'm going to go into my desktop. On my desktop, so I did talk to my vendor through email. So what I did was I actually took that email message and simply saved it out as a file. So I'm going to go in and actually add the vendor approval discussion email to my actual chat. So that's there. I can also go through and add the actual vendor approval document. There's also set up there as well. So I can go through and add the documents as necessary that need to be associated with this discussion. So there's our verification of everything. Once again, if there's additional links that I needed to add, I can do that as well. At this point, I'll go ahead and finish this. And there's that information inside of here. And you can see that there are attachments inside of here as well. So I'll go ahead and close out this discussion, or close the discussion on my side. I'll go back to the user, or I should say to me, and add discussions to mine as well. Now, I did also receive an email that let me know that the demo user has gone through and added to that discussion. Their discussion has been approved, and once again spoke to the vendor. They have approved the design change, attached as the email and sign sheet. Now, to see the actual attachments, I will need to go in, of course, into Windchill to see that information. So when I come in here and look at the vendor approver, there's the information, there's the actual documents that are actually there. So I can go through and download those. I'm not sure why it's not pulling it up, but that's okay. So once again, we will open those up. Now, the other thing that I do like about this as well is that you're also able to go through and take this discussion and save it out. So I can save this out as a PDF. I can save this out in an Excel file. So I still have that even if I want to go through and attach it to an email so somebody else can see that doesn't have Windchill, that there is a discussion, there has been a discussion on that particular item within inside of the system. So I can see that inside of here directly. All right, so now that we've had that discussion, I can now go back in as the end user. Go back to here, go back to my tasks. And then at this point, I'm going to go through and add these CAD files. I'm going to go ahead and add them to my workspace. Just once again to verify everything. Everything is being downloaded. There's a format. There's all the files. Great. So now I'll go ahead and open up this assembly. Turn off all my datum features. I'll go ahead and open up this connecting rod, or I can go through and once again edit it directly in the assembly, however I want to go through and do that, and make a simple change to it. So I'll change that value, if it'll let me pick it. Now, of course, with this, I've just downloaded the files, but now I want to go through and change it. So in order to change it, I either have to do a continue or a checkout. I'm going to do a checkout because the changes that I'm going to make, I'm actually going to submit back into Windchill. So I'm going to go ahead and say checkout now. Now I've checked that file out. I'm going to go through and now increase this width by 1/2 inch. And now I also want to go through and reduce this radius just a little bit. So there's that file. So now I can go through and save that. Close it, go back to the assembly. Let's make a simple change in the assembly. I'm going to do layer functionality just because it's always the easiest. Save status. Once again, I'm going to check out the assembly. That's been updated. Save the assembly. Great. So now I've made the changes. Once again, of course, I would have been in more detail, but I've made the changes based on the discussion. I'll now go back to my workspace. Now, even before I go to my workspace, I'm going to go back to my home tab. I'm going to go back into my change task and look at the resulting objects. So right now my resulting objects are showing everything at 2.1. So when I go back to my workspace and I take these two files and I go ahead and check those two files that I've made changes to, check them back into Windchill, updated per change notice XYZ. Next, I'll go ahead and tell it to go and remove everything from the workspace because I'm done. I'm not going to go back into anything at this point. If I need them again, I'll go ahead and download them again. Everything's checked in. It just left the format and the drawing. I'll remove those too, just to clean out my workspace. And now once again, go back to my home page, go back into the change notice. And now you can see that it immediately, because it is the resulting objects, it immediately updated those versions of the files. So it does look at the latest version of each of the files that is currently inside of my Windchill system. So when I check those in, it updated those automatically. Great. Everything looks good. I feel like I've completed my task. I'll go ahead and complete the task. Now, as the reviewer, I'll now get, there it is. I'll get a task to go through and now review that change notice. So that's my task now. Once again, I'll go through. There's the change task itself. I personally can now take these files and download them, these files here, and download them to my workspace, or I can review them in Creo view if I have the thumbnail viewables. Either one of those, just to kind of review and make sure that the things that we've discussed are actually implemented into the actual design. If they are, great. If not, then once again, one of the options that I have is, instead of being complete, I can do a rework, send it back to the user. They'll go through and actually make additional changes to it if necessary, and once again move on from there. Or once again resubmit it. I'll get to review it again and then decide that it's complete. So at this point, I can go in and now complete this. Now, once I've gone in and completed that, the last thing that needs to be done is by Change Administrator 3. And Change Administrator 3 now goes through and audits the change notice. Their overall purpose, excuse me, is to go through and actually make sure that the things that were set up, that were talked about all the way from the problem report, have been implemented down into the change notice or the actual change task. So they're reviewing, okay, this is what we started with. From there, we went into the change request. Here are the documents for the change request. Here's the discussions that were had. Okay, now from the change request, we created the change notice. In the change notice, we did the task. Here's the notes for the task. Here's the red line markups, whatever it may have been that we've associated with those. Great. Everything is updated. The parts are fine. Everything is fine. And once again, their task is once again to mark it either as complete or once again rework and noting what needs to be updated or what's been incomplete. So once again, at that point, I can go through and say, yep, everything is done. I can now go through and complete that particular task. Now, at that point, everything is done. Now, the other thing that happens is because this part or these parts went through the actual change process. I'm going to go back into here. Actually, I can go back into here directly to my CAD files. Because those files went through the change process, we can see that now those items have been released. So in your life cycles, when you set up your life cycle, one of the columns that you set is for change. What that's determining is when you complete a change process, what life cycle state do these files go to? And for our life cycle, we said once it's gone through the change process, these files will now be labeled as released. So each one of these files that we've defined have now been labeled as released. And the other thing that you can see is that these items, they'll have discussions. So if you want to go in and review what was discussed, you can go through and select on that, and you can actually go through and see the actual discussion. So once again, I like it here because once again, the benefit is that not only it wasn't just, it was initially between myself and the end user, but anybody that actually has access to these files will see that there was a discussion inside of here. And they can always review what that discussion is. It's not locked in through an email chain simply between myself and the end user. So it was actually something that everybody can see at this point. All right. And once again, as I've noted before, and I'll show you in my emails, I've continued to get notifications of everything that has been going on. So each one of those change notice review, audit the change notice, and once again, my change notice has been complete. So all that information has been continuously given to me or sent to me through my emails. So every time something was done, I got a notification on it. Now, I do realize that there was one area that I actually forgot to show you. And that area, and I've mentioned it in the previous change processes that I've done. And what that is actually going in and setting up a effectivity date. So I'm going to go into the actual parts. There's an engine blower. I don't think that one is it. I think it's too far down. It's this one here. So I'm going to view the information for that. Now, inside of here, we have multiple parts that are set up. Inside of here, we also have now, once again, an additional tab that I set up was the effectivity. So that is once again underneath customize. So when you add a tab, you can go through and set that up. Yep. Under general, there's your effectivity, and it'll go through and now add the effectivity information. So what you can see is the current effectivity and the history. And what you can see is that version 1.2 is effective from basically its initial submission on 7/17 of last year up through basically the 29th of January. And then from the 30th of January forward is where this version 2.2 appears. Now, if I go to my structure and I want to see what my structure looked like previously, that's where my filter comes in. So I want to see what my structure looked like back prior to 2.1. So because that was at the end of January, I'm going to go into my filter and I'm going to go in and remove the latest. And over here for my display, I'm going to change this from latest to date effectivity. I'm going to use my regular design view, and I'm going to go through and specify that I want to see what this looked like back in November. So I'm going to say November 7th. I'm going to add that over. So anything that doesn't have effectivity, go ahead and use the latest version of that. And what we'll see is that it goes in and it updates that to 1.2, but I'm not sure if you noticed, this one also updated to 1.1. So back here, this part was also a different version as well. I'll go back here and set this back. So just change the date forward. Let's just do today. And once again, I didn't apply it. Sorry. Go back to today, update. And now we can see those files. That's at 2.1 and that's at 2.1. But once again, if we go back prior into the previous version of this, which was 1.2, we can see that some of the other files were also different as well. So it doesn't show me just the latest and greatest. It will actually change my structure based on when this is implemented. Now, not only can I implement this here, But maybe this is something, and I talked about this before with setting effectivity, maybe it's something that we want to set for a future date. So we want the things to actually be set up currently as they are. So everything is fine, but we want to go through and now not implement this until futures tense. So this thing won't actually be implemented until the first week in April. All right, so now when I go back to my structure, edit the structure, and make sure that everything is set up properly. Nope, didn't update properly. I knew something was going to happen. Oh, yep, I have to change this. Sorry, I didn't change the effectivity of the previous one. So I want to go in and change that one as well, because right now there is nothing stopping it. So I'm going to make this effective until the end of March. There we go. All right, so that version is valid through the end of March, and then this one begins at the beginning of April. Go to the latest. Go to my filter. Just go ahead and make sure I don't want to do latest. I want to do it by the date. So I'm still going to set the effectivity, and I'm going to set that to today. And you can see that it's giving me the BOM structure of the 1.2 because once again, 2.1 does not come into effect until April. So as long as I'm getting my bill of material as of right now, it will simply give me that based on the previous one. Now, come beginning of April is when the new design now kicks in. So we can go through and set that up as well. So, and that can be set up inside of the change process as well. I apologize, I didn't show that. But when we're going in and setting up the tasks, and it shows the actual affected items and then the new items, inside of there we can also set effectivity. Once again, I apologize for not showing that. That slipped my mind. I just kept the process going forward. All right, so once again, that is just something else that we can go through and add and can be set during the change process. But as you can see there, you can also go in and set it manually in your models as well. So even if you don't set them inside of the change process, you can simply add the effectivity to a tab and then set that there as well. Now, in order for that to be truly effective, you will need to go through and make sure you set the previous versions as well. So that way you have, accurate BOMs based on the appropriate dates that you set. All right. So at this point, that is it. So any questions on anything with change management at this point? You do have the question area, so if you do have a question, you can go through and type it inside of there if you do have a question. We have problems with the email portion of Windchill. Sometimes an email goes out and sometimes it does not, or it doesn't go to the appropriate individuals. Any idea what or where we should be looking to fix this? Probably, so the question is basically emails going out. You may want to verify your workflows. In the workflow, there is a step in there that actually sends out the email. So you want to verify that the email addresses, or I should say the people that it needs to go to are in there as recipients. So they will actually get the email. So after each task, just like I showed you in my email, there is an email that gets sent out. So you can go through and actually set that up so that once again, after each step, the appropriate people get the appropriate emails. So you can check that out as well. All right, a couple other questions coming in. So at the beginning of the change notice, there was a template as a dropdown. What type of template file can, wow. What type of template file can be used? It's just basically additional information that you can set up. So you can have a different template for the change process. The process itself is the same, but the information that you're actually looking at can actually be tweaked. So that's what that actually is doing inside of there. If you want to submit a change for later, how do you get back to the request and send it later? All that information. So if you do actually want to save it, one of the things that you can always go into is there's always tasks. Tasks shows everything. So everything that we've done up to this point is now listed inside of here. So this is where everything will be. So whether it's submitted or whether you basically put it on hold, it will actually show up inside of there. It seemed like a lot of steps with change notices. The setup at the company make this more efficient. Yes. With that, I did quite a bit as far as the actual setting up of this for myself. So yeah, there can be a lot to it, or it can be simplified. You just want to make sure that for the roles, so a lot of the things that I set up, even for roles, you can actually have those as part of your team and assign the individuals to that. You can set up team templates that actually set that information up as well. So it's a couple of fewer steps inside of there, but with that as well, to make sure everything propagates appropriately, you do want to create the notice, whether it's a problem report to the change request or the change request to the change notice. You want to create that from the previous one. That way it actually is fewer steps because you're just propagating stuff across the board. So you're just making sure that you're incorporating it. And once again, as me as the individual doing everything, it does seem like it's quite a few steps. But once again, I took on the role of multiple people. So there will be, simpler steps that can be followed to go in and do this. So it's not as cumbersome as it may appear. What are the best practices related to family table generics and instances that are involved in a change? Always include the entire table or just the affected items? Yes. Family tables. For a change best practice, I want to say it's company based. But for a simplified answer, if you don't mind all of your instances being at the same revision level, I would say add them all, because that way everything follows. Everything will end up at the same lifecycle state. And even when you're going to the change process, you want to make sure that you can actually modify the files. So with that, if you've tried to modify family tables, you know that it basically requires you to go through and of course check out the generic and at least the instance. Depending on the change that you make, it may require all the instances. So to make it simplified, if once again you don't mind everything being at the same revision level, then yeah, I will go in and say, sure, bring out all the instances of that table. And I'm dealing with hardware. And it just depends on, of course, sheet metal parts is a no-brainer, but you may have some things that are a little bit more specific, where there's just simply alternates that are in there that don't necessarily need to change. But it's kind of hard to say. But I would say, once again, if you don't mind everything being at the same revision, make it easy. I would do everything at once. somebody did come through and make a comment that says, yeah, for family tables, best practices, don't use them. Windchill and family tables, Windchill is very strict to family tables, which makes it more difficult to go through and manipulate individual instances without manipulating the entire table. So it takes some work. It's just, yeah, it's not the easiest thing to do when things are standalone parts. Next, can a change request be triggered from the drawing/part file? If so, will the files be linked to the notice automatically? Yes, they can be triggered from the drawing or the part file. So yeah, I don't have to use the WT part file. I can use just a regular CAD file to go in and do so. So yeah, I can do that. If I select them both, they'll automatically be selected. If I'm just picking one of the two, I can go through and add that, and there may be a preference where it comes to family tables. In my mind, I don't see why it wouldn't be. I haven't checked it, but there should be a preference in there that if you're going in and pulling the drawing, that it pulls the required information, which will be like the format and the actual models, and vice versa. If I'm pulling the model itself, to actually pull the drawing with it as well. So those may be preferences that can be set to go through and actually have that stuff collected automatically. Must a user be assigned to do the revision? Are you referring? I'm not exactly sure of that one. My assumption is you're saying the actual task or the ability to do the revision. So that revision that I did when I did the old to the new can be done by myself as the person that's actually creating the change notice, or by the person assigned to do the work. They can also do the revision as well, as long as they have revised permissions as one of their options. So yeah, as an individual, yeah, I can do it as the person that's creating it, or the assignee to the actual task can also do it as well. Do notifications occur in both Windchill and Outlook? Both. The notification is the task. So your task will actually go in and show the actual work for you to be done. So that'll be in your home page. So you'll see that in your task listings. Otherwise, or I should say, in addition to, you'll also see your email as well. So it will show up in your task, even if it doesn't go in and show, if it's not connected to your Outlook. But connecting to your Outlook will basically help you not have to be in Windchill all the time to see it. And must effectivity dates be used, or is this an option? It's just an option. You don't have to use effectivities. It's just an option that you can go through and use that, once again, kind of enhances your BOM structure somewhat. It's just another way of going in and filtering to be able to get back to older versions of files. Wow, a lot of questions, a lot of good questions. Hopefully I've answered everybody's questions okay. If there are any additional questions, please once again submit them as well. All right. If there's no additional questions, just as a summary, once again, we do continue to have webinars every week. We may have one or two depending on what topics we're covering, but we definitely have at least one for Wednesday webinar. You can go to our website at boundaryassist.com and go on into our webinars. We also have, of course, upcoming training. So boundaryassist.com, you can go to our training schedule to go through and see that as well. Once again, if you do have any additional questions on anything, feel free to contact me. Probably best to contact me through email, just in case I'm in meetings or off-site or doing something else. That way I can respond to an email. But once again, my phone number is 513-415-0747. Email is mwimberly@boundaryassist.com. Sales-related questions, you can still send them to me. I can direct them to the appropriate people, or you can contact sales directly at 440-274-0291 or sales@boundaryassist.com. If you have technical questions, you can go, or sorry, technical support questions, you can send us an email at support@boundarysys.com, or you can go to our support system and open up a ticket. Register your company, go in and submit a ticket that will go to our ticketing system. Every week we have an engineer of the week who basically monitors our ticketing system, and we'll get back to you relatively quickly with that. As far as whether we're looking into it with an answer, whatever it may be, to go through and help you resolve your issue. And that is actually at support.boundarysys.com. That will take you to it as well. Or once again, just visit our website at boundarysys.com, and you can see all the information that is associated with us, any software deals that may be going on with time-limited offers that PTC has current going on for the quarter, or just general information about us. And other than that, thank you for your time, and we will talk with you later. Once again, visit our website and to see our next upcoming webinar. Thank you for your time, and have a great remainder of the afternoon, rest of the week, and we hope to see you on another webinar coming up. Thank you.